As long as your sister is under this roof, you are nothing to me in this house. I won't waste a single dollar of her money on you. Get your things and be gone before she comes back." That was my mother, standing in my doorway in a peach cardigan I had bought her for Mother's Day, telling me to disappear from the only home I had ever known. I think part of me had been waiting for that sentence my whole life. Not waiting like you wait for a bus, waiting like you wait for a doctor to finally say the word out loud, the one you already know is coming. I had spent 31 years trying to earn a place at her table. 31 years of cold soup and colder silences, and in that 1 minute, in that hallway with the cracked baseboard I had been meaning to fix, she gave me back my whole life. I just didn't know it yet. My name is... well, that doesn't matter so much. Let's just say the name on my driver's license is one she picked out because it sounded respectable, and the name everyone actually called me growing up was whatever my younger sister felt like calling me that day. I'm 31. I work from home doing medical billing for a small clinic in Asheville. I'm not married. I almost was once in my mid-20s, but he was a good man and I was a tired woman, and tired women shouldn't promise forever to anyone. I broke it off. He cried. I went home and made my mother dinner because she said her back hurt. That's the kind of woman I had become. I have what doctors call a constellation of small problems. Nothing fatal. Nothing that gets you sympathy at a dinner party. Low blood pressure, a thyroid that does whatever it wants, an immune system that throws in the towel if I look at a draft sideways. I get bronchitis the way other people get the hiccups, so a regular 9 to 5 was never really in the cards for me. I was lucky though. 3 years ago I found this remote billing job, and it pays just enough that I could keep the lights on at the house and put gas in the old Camry and still tuck a little aside in a savings account I never told my mother about. That savings account is going to matter later. Hold on to that. My father passed 4 years ago this past October. Pancreatic cancer. He went from a healthy-looking 66-year-old man at his birthday cookout to a yellow shadow in a hospital bed in 11 weeks. 11 weeks. I sat with him every single night. I read him the sports page even though I don't follow sports. I held the cup so he could sip the cold tea he liked. The night before he died, he grabbed my wrist with what was left of his strength and he said, "Baby, you don't owe her anything. You hear me? You don't owe her one more thing." I said, "Okay, Daddy, but I didn't mean it." You can't undo 30 years of training in 11 weeks. After Daddy died, I moved back into the house full-time. My mother needed help, she said. She didn't know how to work the thermostat. She didn't know how to write a check. She had never pumped her own gas in her life, so I came back. I paid the property taxes out of my savings. I paid the water bill, the power bill, the cable she insisted on keeping for her shows, the homeowner's insurance, the appliance warranty, the lawn guy, the gutter guy, the man who came to spray for termites every spring. I bought groceries. I cooked. I cleaned. On the days I couldn't get out of bed because my body had decided to betray me again, she would stand in my doorway and say, "Your sister never had this problem. Your sister was always a strong girl." My sister. Let's talk about my sister. She's 3 years younger than me, and she came out of the womb knowing she was special. My mother used to say that, actually, like it was a compliment to the universe. The first time I really understood that I was the spare and she was the heir, I was about 7. We had both been invited to the same birthday party. My sister got a brand new dress with little embroidered strawberries on it. I wore one of her hand-me-downs that didn't quite fit in the shoulders. When the other mother at the party asked my mother why I was wearing my sister's old clothes, my mother laughed and said, "Oh, she doesn't really notice things like that. She's not that kind of girl." I remember standing there with a little paper plate of cake, and I thought, what kind of girl am I then? I'm still not sure I know. My sister grew up beautiful. I'll give her that. She got my father's good cheekbones and my mother's wavy hair, and somewhere along the way she also picked up the absolute certainty that the world existed for her convenience. She got married at 24 to a perfectly nice man named, well, let's call him her ex-husband because that's what he is now. He worked in finance. They lived in a 2-bedroom condo in a building with a doorman in Charlotte. They had a little girl. My niece? My niece is the only one in that whole family who I would walk through fire for. She's 6. She has my father's eyes, exactly, and it breaks my heart every time I look at her. So, picture this. A Tuesday afternoon in March. I'm at the kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of ginger tea, working on a stack of insurance denials when I hear a car door slam in the driveway. I look up, and through the kitchen window, I see my sister coming up the walk in a camel coat I know cost more than my car payment, dragging a pink suitcase, and behind her, my niece looking small and tired in a puffy jacket. My mother is already at the front door before I can even stand up. "Sweetie," my mother is saying. "Sweetie, what is it? What's happened?" And my sister walks right past me like I'm a coat rack and goes into the living room and drops her purse on the couch and says, "I left him. I'm done. We're staying here." I said, "What do you mean staying here?" I said, "What do you mean staying here?" She didn't even look at me. She said, "What does it sound like?" "Mom said I could come anytime. I'm a nurse practitioner. I can find a new job in 2 weeks. We'll be fine." I said, "But..." And my mother turned around and looked at me with this face I had seen my whole life. The face that said, "Don't ruin this for me." The face that said, "Your sister is here now, so you can hush." That was the start of 3 months I hoped to never live again. She hadn't been a nurse practitioner. I want you to know that now so you can really see what I was dealing with. She wasn't anything. She had been telling her husband for 4 years that she had a part-time job at a women's health clinic. She did not. She had been telling all of us she was nothing. She was a woman who got her nails done on Tuesdays and met men at the W Hotel on Thursdays and met men at the W Hotel on Thursdays. But I didn't know any of that yet. I just knew that one day my house was my house, and the next day my sister was eating my cereal out of the box and putting her bare feet on my coffee table and telling me my niece couldn't go to preschool because she was about to start kindergarten in the fall anyway, so what was the point? I'll tell you what the point was. The point was that my sister wanted my niece out of her hair so she could nap until 11 and then go to job interviews that lasted from 3 in the afternoon until midnight. So my niece spent her days with me. And honestly, that part wasn't the worst. That little girl and I figured each other out fast. I'd let her sit at the kitchen table with me while I worked, and she'd color these elaborate scenes of what she called Auntie's office with tiny stick figure patients lined up. I made her grilled cheese cut into triangles. I taught her to braid yarn. She started calling me Auntie B, even though my name doesn't start with B. I never did figure out why. I never asked. I just loved it. The household ran the way it always ran, except now I was feeding 4 people instead of 2. I was buying juice boxes and goldfish crackers and the special yogurt my niece liked. I was running 2 extra loads of laundry a day because my sister, who claimed she was constantly job hunting, somehow generated more dirty clothes than a touring rock band. My mother stopped doing even the small things she used to do. She would sit in her recliner watching her shows, and my sister would lay across the couch on her phone, and I would carry plates between them like a waitress at a diner that had lost its mind. The worst part wasn't the work. It was the watching. Every meal. Every single meal. They sat together at the table, my mother and my sister, and they'd lean their heads close and laugh at something on my sister's phone. And my niece would eat quietly across from them, and there would be a chair for me with no plate in front of it. The first time it happened, I thought it was an honest mistake I had cooked. There were clearly 4 servings of chicken on the stove. I had set 4 places. By the time I came in from putting the laundry on the line, the 4 servings had become 3 on plates and 1 in a Tupperware they had set aside for, and my mother's words, "Later, if there's enough." There never was enough. There was enough going to be enough. I went out to my car and drove to the diner on a Route 64 and ate a tuna melt by myself and cried into the curly fries. The waitress, an older woman with a name tag that said something with an L, brought me a slice of pie I didn't order and didn't charge me for it. Some women just know. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom with the door locked because my sister had developed a habit of borrowing things from my dresser without asking, I had this memory I hadn't thought about in 20 years. I was 9. My father was on a business trip. My mother had made spaghetti, just enough for her and my sister. When I came down for dinner, she said, "Oh, I didn't think you'd be hungry." "There's bread in the pantry." I made myself a butter sandwich and ate it on the back porch in the dark. And I thought to myself, lying there at 31 in that same house, my God, this is just how it is. This isn't a phase she's going through. This isn't grief from losing Daddy. This is who she is. This is who she has always been. The only thing that's changed is that I've stopped having Daddy in the house to put a plate in front of me. I started saving harder, not strategically, just instinctively. The way an animal starts hoarding nuts when something in the air shifts. I cut every corner I could. I stopped buying the good coffee. I started packing leftovers from my own lunches for my dinner, so I wouldn't have to add to the grocery list. I picked up 2 extra clients for after-hours billing work and kept the deposits in a secret account my mother didn't know about. I told myself I was just being careful. I told myself I wasn't planning anything, but somewhere underneath I was. Somewhere underneath I was already packing. It was a Wednesday in early June when it happened. My sister had announced that morning that she had a really promising interview and would be gone all afternoon. She left at noon in a dress that I'm pretty sure no hospital administrator has ever requested for an interview. I was in my room with the door closed, on a call with a billing supervisor in Tampa. I had a sticky note on my monitor that said, "Do not disturb, work call," because I had learned the hard way that my mother considered a closed door to be a personal challenge. The call ended at 2. I took off my headset. I was just opening the newspaper my niece had brought up for me earlier. She liked to deliver the mail, when there were 3 loud bangs on the door. 3. Like she was trying to break it down. "Open this door right now." That was my mother's voice, and it was a voice I hadn't heard since I was a teenager. I opened the door. She was standing there in the cardigan, the peach one, with her hair done. She had been to the salon. I remember registering that and being confused by it. She said, "Get your things together." I said, "I'm sorry." "What?" She said, "You heard me. Your sister and the baby need real space now. Your sister is talking to a lawyer about custody and she needs to look settled. She needs an office. She needs a guest room for when her friends visit. I'm giving her your room. I want you out by the end of the day." I stood there. "I want to tell you I said something brave. I want to tell you I told her where she could put her peach cardigan. I didn't." I stood there and I felt my whole face go cold, the way it does right before you faint. I said, "Where am I supposed to go?" And she said, "That's not my problem. You're a grown woman. Figure it out. You've been a guest in this house long enough." A guest. In the house I had been paying the property taxes on for 4 years. A guest. In the house I had nursed my dying father in. A guest. And then she said the part that broke something. She said, "As long as your sister is under this roof, you are nothing to me in this house. I won't waste a single dollar of her money on you. Now get your things and be gone before she comes back." Her money. Her money. My sister did not have a job. My sister did not have a dollar. My mother had a small Social Security check and the pension my father had left. Every dime of her money being spent in that house was mine. Every single dime. I didn't argue. I want you to understand that I didn't argue, not because I was weak, but because in that exact moment, something inside my chest just got very quiet. You know that quiet. If you know it, you know it. The quiet that comes after you finally accept something you've been refusing to accept for a long time. I closed the door gently in my mother's face. I sat down on the edge of my bed. I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking. I thought, okay, Daddy, okay, Daddy. I called my niece up to my room before I started packing. I sat her on my bed and I told her I was going to be moving to my own apartment and that I would always be there for her, and she could call me anytime, and if she ever needed me, she could ask Mommy or Grandma to dial my number. She nodded very seriously. She said, "Are you sad?" I said, "No, baby, I'm relieved." She said, "What does relieved mean?" I said, "It means a heavy thing is finally off your back." She thought about that. She said, "Can I come visit your new house?" I said, "The second I'm settled in, I promise." And then I cried for about 90 seconds with her arms around my neck, and then I stopped and I started packing. Here's what I packed: my clothes, my laptop, my grandmother's quilts that my mother had told me 10 years ago I could have, the photo album of my dad, a small wooden jewelry box, the ginger tea. That was it. Everything else in that house I left. The dishes I had bought, the linens I had bought, the small TV in my room I had bought, the air purifier, the humidifier, the white noise machine. I left it all. I figured anything I took would be one more thing my mother could chase me down for later, so I left clean. By 6 o'clock that evening, I was in a Hampton Inn off the interstate. I had a printout from a furnished short-term rental in West Asheville that I'd booked from the hotel lobby. Move-in was Saturday. I had 4 days at the hotel. I had one bag of clothes, my laptop, a quilt, a photo album, and $41,000 in a savings account my mother had never known about. I ordered a club sandwich from room service. I ate every bite. I slept 10 hours. I hadn't slept 10 hours in 4 years. The first month in my new place was the strangest, gentlest month of my life. The rental was a tiny one-bedroom over a bakery, and every morning I woke up to the smell of bread. I had a balcony the size of a postage stamp with a single folding chair on it, and I'd sit out there in the early light with my tea, and I'd just listen to the city wake up. I didn't get sick once. Not a sniffle, not a fever, not a single bronchitis flare-up. I started taking walks, short ones at first around the block, then longer ones. I bought a pair of actual walking shoes. I bought a real coffee maker. I bought a small bookshelf and 3 novels. I bought myself flowers on a Tuesday for no reason. I had not bought myself flowers in my entire adult life. My sister called me 46 times in the first 3 weeks. I know because I counted. I didn't pick up once. She left voicemails that got progressively meaner, then progressively more pathetic. Where are you? Mom needs you to come back and fix the dishwasher. Mom can't figure out the cable bill. The toilet upstairs is making a noise. We're out of laundry detergent. You're being incredibly selfish right now. You're abandoning your own mother. The baby is asking for you. Don't you care about the baby? That last one almost worked. I almost called back for the baby. Then I remembered I had given my niece a card with my new address and a prepaid cell phone number, and I had told her she could reach me anytime. The baby didn't need my mother as a middleman. My mother needed the baby as a hostage. I blocked my sister on a Sunday morning in late June while I was eating an everything bagel from the bakery downstairs. I felt nothing. I felt great. I added cream cheese. It was a Thursday when my mother finally got through. She called from a number I didn't recognize, a landline I think, maybe a neighbor's. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. Her voice on the other end was small, smaller than I had ever heard it. She said, please, can we meet? Just to talk, just for a few minutes. There's something I need to tell you, please. I don't have anyone else. And God help me, I said yes. I said, fine. I'll meet you at the coffee shop on Haywood, tomorrow at 4. I won't stay long. I'll tell you why I went. I went because I wanted her to see me. I wanted her to look across the table at the daughter she had thrown out of her own house, and I wanted her to understand with her own eyes that I was fine, that I was better than fine, that I was free. I wore a dress I had bought myself the week before, navy blue with little white polka dots. I wore lipstick. I had gotten my hair trimmed for the first time in 2 years. I drove over in my Camry, which I had finally taken to a real mechanic and gotten the shimmy fixed in the steering wheel. I parked. I walked in. There she was, at a small table by the window, wearing the same peach cardigan, looking like she had aged 10 years in 2 months. She started crying before I even sat down. Not loud crying. The leaky kind. The kind designed to make you feel sorry for someone. I sat down. I didn't hug her. I said, you wanted to talk, so talk. She talked. Lord, did she talk. The story came out in pieces. My sister had not been a nurse practitioner. My sister had not been to a single real job interview. My sister had been seeing a man for 2 years behind her husband's back, and her husband had finally hired a private investigator and gotten everything on paper. My sister was getting divorced with no settlement because of the prenup she had signed and forgotten about. Her husband was filing for full custody of my niece, and the lawyer my mother had spoken to said he was going to get it. My sister had run through what little cash she had left buying clothes and getting her hair done and going out to bars. She had started taking money out of my mother's checking account without asking, claiming she was paying bills. She wasn't paying bills. The power was about to be cut off. The property tax bill had come and there was no one to pay it. My mother had no money. My mother had nothing. My mother was here in this coffee shop in her peach cardigan asking me, her firstborn, the daughter she had told to disappear, to please come home and fix it. She said, I made a terrible mistake. She said, I made a terrible mistake. She said, your sister is a monster. She said, please come home. We need you. You're the only one who has ever taken care of me. I let her finish. I let her get all the way through. I sipped my coffee. I watched her dab at her eyes with a paper napkin. And when she was done, I set my cup down very gently and I said, "No." She blinked at me. She said, "What?" I said, "No. I'm not coming home. There is no home. You sold me out for a daughter who lied to you for 4 years and stole from you the second she got the chance, and you would do it again tomorrow if she walked back through the door. You don't actually want me. You want a maid you don't have to pay and a checkbook you don't have to balance." She said, That's not fair. I am your mother." I said, "You were Daddy's wife. That's a different thing. Daddy was my parent. You were the woman who lived in the same house." The tears stopped pretty fast after that. Her face went hard. She said, "You owe me. After everything I did for you, you owe me. And here's where I want to be honest with you. Here's where the version of me that had been sitting in church basements her whole life, swallowing down every wrong thing, did something I was not proud of in the moment and am completely fine with now." I picked up my water glass, the big one, full to the brim with ice water, and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. My hand is just so weak from carrying everyone for so long," and I tipped it, slow, right into her lap. Not on her face. I'm not a monster. Just her lap, right on to the peach cardigan and the gray slacks and the white tennis shoes she always wore. She made a sound like a kettle. She jumped up. The water was everywhere. The ice cubes skittered across the floor. The barista looked over. I held up a hand to him in apology. I grabbed a sack of napkins from the dispenser and I held them out to her and I said, "Here you go. You probably want to dry off. You wouldn't want to catch a cold." My voice was very calm. My voice was very flat. She stared at me. I stared back. I said, "You used to make me bathe in cold water when Daddy was out of town. Did you know I remember that? You said hot water was wasteful. You said I didn't need a real towel, just a hand towel. You said the hairdryer was for your hair, not mine. Do you remember why I have always been sick, Mama? Do you remember?" Her face. Her face when I called her Mama. I had not called her Mama since I was 12. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, dripping, holding the napkins. I said, "Here is what is going to happen. You are going to figure out how to pay your own property tax. You are going to figure out how to call your own cable company. If you sell that house, which you are probably going to have to do, that's not my problem. If my sister moves in with one of her men, that's not my problem either. Your bills are not my problem. Your dishwasher is not my problem. You are not my problem. Do you understand me?" She said, "You can't. You can't just leave me with nothing." I said, "Oh, but here is the funny part." I picked up my phone. I unlocked it. I pulled up the photo I had been saving for exactly this moment. A photo of the keys to a small craftsman bungalow in West Asheville. A house I had bought with cash 3 weeks earlier, from the savings I had been hiding for years and the bonus I had gotten from picking up those extra clients. My own house, with a little porch and a fenced yard and a guest room I had already painted yellow for when my niece could come visit, which her father, when I called him, had agreed she could, supervised as soon as I was settled. I had bought the place outright. No mortgage. Property taxes I could cover from my income, easy. My very own front door. I turned the phone around so my mother could see the picture. I said, "This is mine. I bought it, with money I saved while I was paying for everything in your house. I have been planning to leave you for 2 years, Mama. I just needed you to push me hard enough that I'd actually do it, so thank you. Truly. I owe you one. This one. Just this one." She sat down. She sat down hard in the wet chair and she didn't even flinch. I stood up. I picked up my purse. I left a 20 on the table for the coffee and the trouble. I walked to the door. I turned around. I said, "Oh, by the way, Mama, family is just like strangers. My sister told me that herself the day I moved out of your house. She was very clear about it, so I'm going to take her at her word. Goodbye." I walked out. I got in my Camry. I drove home to my house and I sat on my porch and I drank a glass of iced tea and I watched a hummingbird at the feeder I had hung the week before. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just sat there. The light was very gold. It was almost evening. My sister tried to call from new numbers for about a month after that. I kept blocking them. I changed my own number eventually, just to be done. I heard from a cousin on my dad's side that things over at the house got bad fast. The power did get cut off. My mother had to put the house on the market. She didn't get anywhere near what she thought she would for it because she hadn't kept up with repairs after Daddy died and the kitchen was 30 years out of date. She and my sister moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a building near the highway, the kind of building where people leave shopping carts in the parking lot. My niece, beautiful brave girl, went to live with her father and his new fiancé, a kindergarten teacher who, by all accounts I have heard since, is patient and warm and has been very good to her. My niece is in the 1st grade now. She wrote me a letter last month, in pencil, with her teacher's help, and she signed it, "Your favorite niece," with a little heart over the I. I have it on my fridge. I heard from the same cousin that my sister still doesn't have a job. My mother has been calling everyone in the family asking for money. The aunts on my dad's side stopped picking up after the 2nd month. The aunt on my mother's side, the one who actually knows my mother, never picked up at all. My mother has, I am told, started telling people I abandoned her in her old age. I don't bother correcting anyone. The people who matter know. Daddy knows. As for me, I'm doing all right. Better than all right. I got promoted at the clinic to lead biller, which means a small raise and the ability to set my own hours. I joined a little walking group on Saturday mornings, mostly women in their 50s and 60s who has been through their own things and don't need to talk about it to recognize each other. I started seeing a therapist on Zoom once every 2 weeks, a soft-voiced woman in Portland who has helped me understand a lot of things I had been carrying around for years without knowing. I got a cat, a big orange tabby from the shelter. He sleeps on my chest at night and purrs like a small motorboat, and there's a man. I almost didn't put this in because I wanted you to understand that I didn't need a man to make this story end well. I was already fine. I was already free. But there is a man. He came into my life through the walking group, actually, the brother of one of the older women visiting from Raleigh. He's an architect. He's 42. He lost his wife to breast cancer 6 years ago, and he wasn't looking for anything either. We have been seeing each other for 7 months. He brings me soup when I'm sick, which is now very rare. And he asks me about my day, and he listens to the answer. Last weekend, he asked me if I would consider, eventually, no rush, taking a trip with him to see a piece of land he owns out near the coast. I said yes. We're going in the spring. Sometimes I sit on my porch in the evening and I talk to my dad, out loud. I don't care if the neighbors hear. I tell him about my day, about the cat, about the man, about the niece. I tell him about the hummingbird who comes back every afternoon at the same time. I tell him I'm sorry it took me so long to do what he told me to do that night in the hospital. I tell him I finally understand what he meant. I tell him I'm not tired anymore. I tell him I love him. And the wind moves through the trees in a certain way, sometimes, and I swear to you, I swear I can feel him smiling. Family is what loves you. Everything else is just people who happen to share your last name. My father knew that. My niece is going to know that. And me, finally, at 31 years old, sitting on my own porch with my own cat and my own hummingbird, drinking tea I bought with money no one can take from me. I know it too. I am free. I sat on my porch the other night with the cat curled up in my lap, and I tried to figure out, honestly, where the whole thing had gone wrong. Not where my mother went wrong. Where I did. Because the truth, the one nobody likes to say out loud, is that I let it happen. For 31 years, I let it happen. Every cold bath, every empty plate at the table, every time I picked up a bill that wasn't mine to pay, I was the one signing the receipt. My mother could only take what I kept handing her. My sister could only sit on the couch because I kept pulling the blanket up over her feet. That is the part of this story I had to learn to look at without flinching. What I understand now is that there is a kind of cause and effect that operates in families, the same as it does anywhere else. If you teach people that you have no limits, they will keep walking until they find one. If you never find one for them, they will walk you right out of your own life. My mother didn't wake up one morning and decide to be cruel. She got cruel a teaspoon at a time over 30 years because every teaspoon was met with my open hand. The day she told me to leave, she was just doing what I had been training her my whole life to feel free to do. I want to say something to anyone listening who recognizes their own kitchen in this story. The way out is not loud. It does not look like a fight. It looks like a savings account no one knows about. It looks like a job you take quietly. It looks like a job you take quietly. It looks like packing one bag and not arguing about the rest. The strongest thing I ever did was close my bedroom door gently in my mother's face and start writing a list. Strength is not screaming. Strength is the long, quiet work of building yourself a door you can walk out of when you finally need to. And I want to say one more thing, because I think it is the part most people get wrong. Walking away from people who hurt you is not the same as becoming someone who hurts people. I do not hate my mother. I do not wish her ill. I just know, the way I know my own handwriting, that she is not safe for me to be near. Loving someone from a distance is still love. Sometimes it is the only honest love available to you. My niece is going to grow up knowing that her Auntie B is on the other end of the phone whenever she dials. That is the chain breaking. That is what I did with the years I had left after I got out. So if you are sitting somewhere tonight wondering whether you are allowed to leave, I want you to hear me. You are allowed. You are always allowed. Start the savings account. Pack the small bag. Build the door. The peace on the other side is real, and it is waiting for you, and you do not have to earn it. You just have to walk through.